Hi, I'm Harley. So tonight, Harley's Sleepytime Cinema selection is a little bit different. For starters, I don't have a box. There's nothing to show you. There's nothing for me to hold up here. So it's going to be a little awkward because usually I look at the box so that I'm not looking directly at the camera because that's awkward. Now I have nothing. I have nothing to focus on. It's weird. But tonight starts the first of what I hope will be a 5-episode presentation of strictly YouTube videos. Now, the movie that we're going to talk about tonight is available in its entirety on YouTube. I know, because I watched it there myself. It is called The Day After. It was originally released in 1983. It was a made-for-TV movie. It was most recently talked about on The Goldbergs, which is where I learned about it. It came out, I was way too young to be aware of what it was, because in 83 I would have been, what, like 4, 5 maybe, depending on when it was released. So I really had no idea about it until I watched this episode of The Goldbergs, where they talked about it in their episode that was on this season called The Day After, The Day After, which is really funny. I love The Goldbergs. They're hilarious. It was the most popular, it still is the most popular TV movie that has ever been produced. It had over 100 million viewers. It had a 62% Nielsen rating. It was watched by virtually everybody in the country. And I wouldn't say it necessarily caused a panic, but it definitely shifted the talk of the time. There was this whole Cold War, thing going on, and it was very, very apparent, very oppressive in everyone's life. But this kind of got the real talk out there, because until that point, it was just kind of theory. It was all theoretical. Well, this might happen. This could happen. Who would shoot first? Who, would do what? We have nukes, so they have to have nukes. And if they have them, we have to have them, and vice versa. It was all of this, just... I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I can't do it. It was really a dick measuring contest. Whose dick is bigger and who can, pee the farthest. And it was ridiculous. And this really put an actual face on the problem, because it showed really in graphic detail what would happen. Nuclear explosions, everybody knows they're not pretty, but it's not just the initial explosion. That's the thing that I don't think anybody at that time really thought about. It's not a regular bomb. It just doesn't go off and it's over. There is a crap ton of aftermath. It's the effects are huge. You can't be outside. You can't breathe the air. Every second that you're exposed to nuclear radiation, you are dying. It is changing your cells. You can't drink the water. You can't eat the food. You have to make drastic changes. And this really put a fine point on it, because it put a light on the fact that we were not prepared. Hospitals are not prepared for this. There's nowhere to hide. It's not like being in a bomb shelter is going to help you, because that's a short-term plan for a long-term situation. The interesting things that I learned about this movie, because like I said, I didn't really know much about it, was that ABC set up hotlines actually during and after the movie to help people cope with their fear. They wanted to help calm them down and let them know that, something we already know, that it is just a movie, but it was that real and that graphic, and it touched so many people's lives that they really had this preparedness, because they knew how big of an impact it was going to be. Many of the people in the movie were virtually unknown at the time, but went on to have very successful careers. Jo Beth Williams plays Nurse Nancy. Steve Guttenberg plays a guy named Steve. It was one of his first films. John Cullum, he's Farmer Jim in the movie, but he's on The Middle currently, which is another sitcom that I still love. I watch it all the time. And then John Lithgow was on it. He played Joe Huxley, who is a scientist who kind of gives the scientific explanation for what's going on, why they can't go outside, what they're looking for in the environment to be able to venture back out. Basically, the movie, it just focuses on a few main characters and how their lives progress before, during, and after the nuclear explosion. The plot of the story, it really just focuses around the bomb. So it's hard to say what it's about, because it's really just how your life changes, from the young to the old. The older doctor, Jason Robards, who plays Dr. Oakes, he's an older doctor. He even admits that he's kind of out of his depth because he doesn't know a ton about radiation poisoning, but he does know that they need to stay inside, they need to be away from the windows, they need to be away from the air, they need to have a plan, conserve what food they have, conserve what medical supplies they have. They need to triage, like the injured, to what can be treated and what really just can't be treated and is going to be, unfortunately, a lost cause and a waste of supplies. And then, as one of the only hospitals left standing in the area, more and more injured pour in, and just realizing that there's not enough for everyone, that there's no way to treat everyone. And then what do you do with those that don't make it? Dead bodies spread disease. They can't stay in the hospital, but they can't leave the hospital either. So there's just problem upon problem upon problem, and it's people who essentially are just out of their depth and just struggling to survive in the aftermath. The lack of communication between the rest of the country and the places affected, it's rough. It was such a realistic portrayal that people were truly, truly affected. It really was, and still can be, a movie that changes the world. This movie had a direct impact on so many people's lives because it brought their fears to light. But even President Reagan at the time had said that it changed the way he thought about nuclear war. Now, there's been some allusion to this movie ultimately leading to the peace treaties, the nuclear talkdowns between President Reagan and Russia at the time. And in reality, those talks were already in place. Those things had already been set into motion. But this movie definitely could have made those things happen a lot faster. It only took 4 years for them to come to an agreement after this movie was released. And it could have taken much, much longer. So President Reagan seeing the movie definitely could have had an impact on how fast that happened. So I think I've rambled quite enough. The movie is something else. I'm not even gonna lie. It's a huge, huge bummer. But I think it's well worth the watch. And it's completely free. Just look it up on YouTube. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Definitely leave me a comment. Give me a thumbs up if you want. And make sure to subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you know when I get new stuff put up. And I will talk to you all soon. I hope you all have a really, really good night.